42 assassination attempts on Adolf Hitler. Every single one failed. But what if I told you it wasn't fate? What if the real reason he survived was because he was high every single day, injected with methamphetamine and powerful opioids by his own doctor, while making decisions that killed hundreds of thousands? A failed art student from Vienna's homeless shelters turned his chemical rage into the destruction of Europe. Here's exactly how one man's broken mind almost destroyed the world. By July 1944, at least 42 separate attempts had been made to kill Adolf Hitler. The methods were exhaustive: explosives in brandy bottles, abandoned suicide vests, and briefcase bombs at his feet. Every single one failed. His survival reveals the specific internal structures, both psychological and political, that allowed his rule to persist long after it should have collapsed. Before the rallies, there was a failed art student sleeping in a homeless shelter in Vienna. He applied to the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts twice and was rejected twice. The admissions committee noted his drawings were technically competent, but his human figures were hollow. He could paint buildings, but he could not capture the soul of a person. He spent years in men's dormitories, selling postcards on the street and eating at soup kitchens. His contemporaries recalled him delivering long, one-sided political rants in the common rooms to anyone who happened to be nearby. World War I provided a sense of belonging for his existing rage. He served as a message runner, one of the most dangerous roles in the trenches. In 1918, he was blinded during a gas attack. It was while lying in a hospital bed, unable to see, that he heard the news of Germany's surrender. Lying in that ward, he reached a conclusion that would define the rest of his life. If he were to ever face defeat again, he would ensure millions died before he did. By 1941, the German leader relied on daily treatments from his personal physician, Dr. Theodor Morell. It began as a solution for crippling intestinal cramps, a condition he found deeply embarrassing. Marie administered over 800 injections, including Eucadol, a synthetic oxycodone twice as powerful as morphine. In 1941, an opiate injection instantly cured a fever, allowing him to issue military orders. He was convinced these substances were essential. Over the course of the war, he utilized a cocktail of over 40 medications, ranging from testosterone and barbiturates to the methamphetamine Pervitin, which was also being distributed to soldiers on the front lines. By the final years, Morell struggled to find intact veins in his patients' track-marked arms. Strategic military decisions were being made by a man in a constant chemically altered state. A man obsessed with absolute control over all of Europe had surrendered the chemistry of his own mind to a syringe. Internal resistance was constant. Officers attempted to use Quattro bottles rigged with explosives and even volunteered for suicide missions at uniform exhibitions. In July 1944, Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg entered the Wolf Slayer headquarters carrying plastic explosives. Having lost an eye and a hand, he used modified pliers to arm the deadly fuse. He placed the deadly briefcase directly beneath the heavy conference table, leaving it resting exactly 18 inches from the dictator's feet. When the bomb detonated at 10:42 p.m., the explosion destroyed the briefing room. Stauffenberg watched the smoke from the distance, certain the target was dead. An officer had accidentally moved the briefcase to the opposite side of a thick oak table leg to see a map more clearly. That single piece of wood shielded the dictator, who walked out of the wreckage with only minor burns and a damaged eardrum. He viewed this survival as a sign of fate. In response, he ordered the execution of thousands of people associated with the plot, eliminating the last of his experienced military leadership. In 1942, he ordered 300,000 men of the 6th Army to hold Stalingrad at all costs, Every strategic calculation suggested a retreat to avoid encirclement. He refused. The result was 800,000 Axis casualties. Of the 90,000 survivors who marched into Soviet captivity, only 6,000 would ever return home. On the day the Eastern Front collapsed, Dr. Morrell's medical logs for the Supreme Commander noted only 4 words: intestinal gases, halitosis, discomfort. After Stalingrad, his mood swings intensified. He became euphoric during perceived successes and fell into cold, controlled rages when contradicted. He systematically purged the military of officers who disagreed with him, replacing them with loyalists who followed suicidal orders without question. He had created a chain of command that rewarded blind obedience over tactical reality, ensuring that the military would share in his own eventual collapse. By April 1945, Soviet forces were fighting less than a mile from the Reich Chancellery. The dictator had retreated 55 feet underground. Allied bombing had destroyed the factories producing his drug supplies. Deprived of his daily injections, he suffered from visible physical tremors and withdrawal. He issued orders to armies that no longer existed and demanded the total destruction of Germany's own infrastructure. The Nero Decree, to deny resources to the enemy. In his final dictation, he blamed the collapse on everyone but himself. On April 30th, with a shaking hand, he shot himself. The rule that was meant to last a millennium ended in 12 years, leaving a continent in ruins. The man in the bunker was a rejected student who had found a path to power through a country's economic collapse and his own chemical fixations. The danger lies in how easily the bureaus of propaganda, the chains of command, and the culture of fear can be turned into tools for one person's rages. When those systems remain intact, they can amplify a single human collapse until it destroys an entire world.